Nvidia stands as the leader in the data center chips, a powerhouse earning billions by driving artificial intelligence. From chatbots to self-driving technology. How do they achieve this? It's about processing numbers, huge sets of them, and at incredible speeds. The foundation, something called bits. Now, a bit is the smallest units in computing, a single 1 or 0. Combine them and you represent big numbers. How many numbers? That depends on the bits. With 2 bits you can make 4 numbers, 0 to 3. Just 4 options. With 4 bits that jumps to 16 numbers, 0 to 15. You always start from 0. Still small. At 8 bits you're up to 256 numbers, starting from 0 to up to 255, a bigger range. Move to 16 bits, you're up to roughly 65,000 numbers. Then at 32 bits, you're at 4 billion numbers. Now we are getting at really large numbers. And at 64 bits, it's massive. It's like 18 quintillion numbers. Essentially, you get precision down to the tiniest detail. Now, that's critical for supercomputers to be able to do calculations with that amount of parameters, 18 quintillion essentially, at 64 bits. Tasks like scientific research or weather forecasting, these are known as high-performance computing, or more known at HPC. Here in HPC, no errors are allowed, hence you need 64 or 32 bits. In AI though, it's different. It actually doesn't need that full range of precision. It thrives on speed, handling many millions of calculations at the same time. To do this, AI uses fewer bits, dropping from 64 to 32 to 16 to 8, sometimes even 6 or 4. Fewer bits means smaller range and less accuracy, but far more calculations in the same given time with the same limited hardware. So either you go to the HPC with, you want very precise calculations, but you can do fewer of those calculations, or you go to very low bits like 2 to 4 or 6, where you can do many calculations at the same time. Think of the counting items in a store. With 8 bits, you can track up to 256 items perfectly. While with 2 bits, you're stuck with 4 items, which is less precise. But you can count many piles of 4 much faster. That is essentially the entire AI trick. When Jensen Huang goes on the stage and says now we are like 30x faster than the previous generation from, going from Hopper to Blackwell, this is essentially what they're doing. Obviously they're doing some hardware improvements, but in theory they're reducing the number of, bits and getting less precise calculations. Hence they can do many more of them. So AMD entered this race in 2023, end of 2023, with MI300X. That chip was built for supercomputing, HPC, with large memory and chiplet design to stack parts and save cost. Its software struggled a little bit and its focus was split on HPC and AI, whereas Nvidia was solely focused on AI. Now in 2025, AMD is launching the successor to MI300X, MI355X. It's aiming higher, improving software step by step, sharpening the AI edge, focusing on AI more. And the question then is, can it take more market share from Nvidia's Blackwell than MI300X did from Hopper? 2024 was a pivotal year for data center GPUs. Nvidia dominated, pulling in around $100 billion in revenue from their data center GPUs, the likes of H100, which sold to giants like Microsoft, Google and Meta. That's a 90% market share of AI GPU market, which built on high demand and robust software stack. They managed to ship millions of units and meeting the AI surge head-on. AMD meanwhile earned roughly $5 billion in sales, mostly through their MI300X, carving around 5% of the market. They shipped hundreds of thousands of units. In their biggest, I think, MI300 represented AMD's fastest ramping product ever. So still very good start for AMD. And they landed customers like Microsoft and Meta, a few of which also said that most of their inferencing are exclusively running on AMD's MI300X, probably due to the advantage in hardware, especially in memory capacity. which we will look into further. But first let's have a look at AI models, what they are and what the size actually means. So now let's have a look at the AI model size, where the memory drives the capability. These models mean that more parameters essentially enables bigger models, and bigger models obviously demands more memory. If you consider a 10 billion parameter model common in research, at FP16, remember the bytes that we mentioned before, and now combined over 2 bytes per parameter, that's roughly 20 gigabytes of capacity, memory capacity that you need. Plus, let's say 10 gigabytes for the actual computation, let's say totaling 30 gigabytes, right? Now, if you go to Nvidia's RTX 4060, a common gaming GPU on the market with only 8 gigabytes of memory, that should only be able to essentially fit 2.5 billion parameters. Very small scale stuff essentially. Now, data center GPUs scale higher obviously. MI300 again has 192 gigabytes and can handle up to 60 billion parameters. MI355X with its 288 gigabyte could reach around 90 billion parameter models, while Nvidia's H100 that was selling in 2023 and 2024, probably a little bit even now, at 80 gigabytes of memory capacity could top out at around 25 billion parameters. Bigger memory obviously means that tackling models like Llama or GPT-3 and pushing AI boundaries in the future. Imagine if you want to train bigger models with your limited hardware. One way to do it is to introduce sparsity. And what sparsity means is that you can picture a grid of a matrix of 5 by 5, including 25 spots, but a certain amount of these spots are zeros. Let's say you have like 5 or 7 values out of these 25 spots, but the rest and the majority of them are actual zeros. So instead of calculating 25 steps, you can do like 5 or 7 or how many you have that are actual values and skip the zeros. This speeds up and accelerates your training and inference for models with many zeros. Whereas in HPC, every value counts for precision, like in simulations, so sparsity doesn't work in HPC. This difference shapes AI's efficiency edge. And how you design your hardware, for example, H100, MI300 for AMD and Nvidia, can really gain a lot of advantage with sparsity in mind. So 2024 was a transition year for AMD, going from more and more HPC to AI. Their hardware advantages were obviously the large memory and advanced node, as well as the chiplet design. But they have a weakness, which is their software. The competitor to Nvidia's CUDA and AMD's in this case is called ROCm. ROCm lagged, they were like less optimized than Nvidia's CUDA, which essentially nails sparsity and AI tasks from the get-go. MI300X excelled in HPC as I mentioned before, but kinda trailed a little bit in AI use. Now going into 2025, MI350X will advance AMD's advantage again in memory size, going to 288 gigabytes and utilizing TSMC's fresh 3nm process. This chip probably is going to cost, it's difficult to say, but I would say more than MI300X, maybe at 20 to 25,000. ROCm, the software from AMD, has progressed a lot. Training speed doubled in a lot of cases, just only due to the optimization of the software and ROCm. Inference performance sometimes tripled, and the updates keep flowing in. If AMD refines ROCm for sparsity and usability, they'll shift further into AI core, I think. And market share should climb, in my opinion, maybe to 10% or potentially even 15% in a short time, maybe 1 or 2 years' time. So going back to 2024, I mentioned that MI300X from AMD faced H100. MI300 brought obviously more than double the memory capacity than Nvidia's H100, AMD 192, Nvidia 80. They also had better bandwidth, memory bandwidth at 5.3 terabytes compared to Nvidia's 3.3. They also utilized TSMC's 5nm chiplet, probably cost a little less than Nvidia's H100, which was based on the 4nm from TSMC and cost probably 60 to 100% more. AMD obviously led in HPC. At FP64, AMD led with 163 teraflops compared to H167. But as we went to lower and lower precision, although still AMD on paper at FP8 had a lead at 2.6 compared to 2 from Nvidia, due to the utilization and the software optimization of CUDA combined to ROCm, Nvidia was kind of still leading in actual most world real world scenarios. Going into 2025, this is when everything's get interesting. I think you can see on this table here that MI300, H100, MI350X and Blackwell B200 with the memory capacity, you see that AMD has an advantage there. In memory capacity for 2025 they will be tied, price still Nvidia will be bigger. We can see that at floating point HPC FP64, the strongest chip actually is AMD's previous MI300X. As I mentioned, that chip was a kind of mix of AI and HPC, which means that it was very, very strong in HPC actually, more than double than Nvidia's H100. And I believe we don't have those numbers yet. Probably in HPC, MI350X will at best be tying the previous MI300 and most likely be even lower. But still they will have an advantage compared to Nvidia, I would say, in HPC. As we go down to FP16, we can see that AMD and Nvidia's 2025 lineup very competitive. Even at FP8 at 4.6 petaflops for AMD and roughly 5 for Nvidia's larger Blackwell chip, the B200. I think MI350X is a little bit better than B100, but they're essentially in the same ballpark. At FP4, now both of the newer generations offer that kind of solution, whereas the previous H100 and MI300 didn't. We can also see the power consumption. We also see the die sizes as well as the total footprint of the chip, and all of these are rough estimates. So I think if you look at all of this, it's quite obvious that AMD is using and moving towards AI workload from the previous HPC focus. So question now is, are they closing the gap? Well, if you look at the MI300 compared to H100, AMD managed AI but was slower due to the HPC focus. I think Hopper ruled with low precision speed and sparsity for chatbot training. The MI350X compared to Blackwell, they're focusing more on AMD's side on AI, especially for the chatbots and the inferencing, almost nearly essentially matching Blackwell's low precision edge, although Nvidia would still have somewhat of an edge in terms of sparsity. But still AMD offers you similar performance, much larger memory capacity, similar memory bandwidth at a assumingly much lower price. So my conclusions are that AMD is on a steady climb, facing and threatening Nvidia's throne. AMD kick off with a strong chip with MI300, big memory, good in HPC, but as well somewhat good in also AI, and they managed to get 5% of the market from Nvidia just with this one chip. And MI350X will be better, more focused, razor sharp on AI software and AI hardware. They still gonna have advantage in memory capacity. They're gonna tie Nvidia in memory bandwidth. They're gonna cost less. So as this market continues to grow, it's very unlikely for me that AMD wouldn't see a substantial sales increase as we go into the second half of 2025, especially into 2026. I for one wouldn't be surprised that, as Lisa Su said, AMD will have tens of billions of sales of AI GPUs in the very coming future. And I wouldn't be surprised that AMD's data center sales could reach roughly 20, even 30 billion in a year and a half from now. Which means that essentially they have gotten the same amount of revenue that they had for their entire company previous to the MI300 chip, now from only the AI chips, just in a year or two. And I think this is a great investment opportunity for AMD. The stock price hasn't done anything over the past, if you bought in the highs of 2021, it first went down a lot to 50s in I think 2022 and 2023. Then it peaked last year in March at $227, and now it's back again at around 100. I think with the current stage, if you've been following me, you know that I'm very confident on AMD's earnings. I think They're gonna have a very strong data center sales. Their client segment is gonna probably be a 10 billion market annually already this year. Their gaming had a very weak finish to 2024, but we know that AMD's new gaming GPUs are selling like hotcake everywhere on the planet. Their gaming CPUs are selling like hotcake, taking market share still from Intel. And the FPGAs, field programmer gate arrays that they bought a couple of years ago from Xilinx, also struggled a little bit in late 23 and 2024. I suggest that probably we're going to see somewhat of a rebound even there. So when you combine all of this, we know that their earnings per share is going to explode anytime soon, especially in the second half of this year. I wouldn't be surprised that AMD will have a single quarter with GAAP net income of around $1.5 to $2, which would be an annualized rate of $8 to $10 earnings per share annually, which means that, in my opinion, when I say like $10 earnings per share, maybe it's somewhat positive. Even at 6.5 to 7, you're still buying this company at maybe next year's forward PE ratio of 12, 13, for a company that grows, supposed to grow their AI GPU sales at a minimum by 50% this year. So I think this is a great opportunity to venture into AMD stock. Again, this is not investment advice. I'm just sharing my thoughts and ideas with you guys. But yeah, that's I think this is a great opportunity if you look back a couple of years from now. Now, I would love to see your comments in this comment section. Do you think that AMD is focusing on software finally? Is ROCm actually gaining traction? Will their chiplet advantage start to be visible as we go onwards? Remember that the Blackwell chip is very big. It's two roughly 700 to 800 square millimeter chips combined, and the yield on that shouldn't be too great, whereas AMD is doing the chiplet way with 8 smaller chiplets. Each of them are roughly 100 square millimeters. You have much better yield. So financially and scalability in terms of pure hardware, I believe AMD's manufacturing design language is much more better than Nvidia's. So anyways, that's gonna do it for today. Please like, subscribe. I'm trying my best to reach the 1,000 subscribers, and appreciate all of you that are watching. Maybe you could share this video with one of your friends, and yeah, so see you in the next one.